So OCD is mental health, I would say. People with mental health disorders are a struggle. There's a struggle for people. And people quite often say that they've got OCD, or they've got, people have Tourettes, people have Asperger's, autism, various different things. And they'll quite often sort of say that they're diagnosed with something or they struggle with something. But from what I've come to understand is that I don't think people just have one thing. Tourette's, for example, a lot of common misconceptions are that Tourette's is someone who goes around a supermarket shouting F this, F B, all the swear words, expletives. Actually, Tourette's, if you look it up, and I'm just glazing over this, Tourette's is somebody who has motion tics, vocal tics. So motion tics are twitching in that. I mean, I do these things as well. I think that I'm fortunate to not be diagnosed with Tourette's, but I certainly have all of the symptoms at some point or another. So Tourette's is motion tics, verbal tics, noises. It seemed to be very visual things you're compelled to do. I mean, it is so annoying. I'll go into some of those ones that I have, which are quite amusing. I'm able to control them fairly well. Don't struggle too badly with those. The OCD, of course, OCD is tending to have to do something to make things feel right. The Asperger's, my diagnosis are OCD and high function Asperger's. Asperger's is really, really complicated to get into and to explain how it affects somebody. And also, these things affect everybody differently. So somebody who has OCD will be affected differently to somebody else who has OCD. So there's no common description that applies to. You can't pigeonhole someone and say, well, that person's got OCD, so they do this, this, and this. They must go around washing their hands all the time and not stepping on cracks on the pavement. But that's not true, because through my life, my OCD has changed and evolved, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. So when I was younger, it went from blinking and twitching. That technically could be under the umbrella of Tourette's. But either way, the things, I think it's the word symptoms, they evolve over time. So I found that obviously blinking and twitching caused bullying in distress and I gave people the wrong impression. Well, they winked back, that's weird. And I evolved those into different sort of tics, where I twitch my neck. Kicking my foot on the floor was a good one. Really good for ruining decent shoes and looking like an idiot when you trip yourself up for no reason. To then doing shoulders, looking over my shoulder. That doesn't look normal when you're trying to watch a film with a friend and you keep looking at their ear. It's only, you've got to have some understanding friends. When you're driving, you have to keep looking over your shoulder, especially if you're driving a van and there's nothing to look at. You look like a complete idiot when you do things like that. And then the downside to it, as if that isn't enough, you get a sore neck. I've woke up with the worst bad back and neck imaginable, and I've not known why, and then I've realised it's my own fault. So I digress, but I think what I'm trying to say in this 5-minute section is that if you struggle with a mental health disorder, it's quite often different. Right, that's Gordon, he's got 3 legs. Stop it, Gordon. He's quite calm, quite tame, but Lily's on the floor and she's antagonising him. I think what I'm trying to say, and I'll try and wrap it up, is that if you struggle with a mental health disorder, don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't think, okay, I have OCD, why do I do this? I think they bleed into each other. So start to investigate the different types of mental health disorders there are. And they're positive sides. I could give you a list of positives to my life, and even though I struggle and I don't feel like I'm a typical neurotypical person, I wouldn't really necessarily sacrifice some of the positives to compared to the negatives, and therefore just if I could press a button, get rid of all of my disorders. If I could be if I could be selective and turn some off and some on, then I would, but you can't do that anyway. I need to trim these down. I'm sorry they're so long. I'm still learning how to do all this, and thank you very much for listening and bearing with me on these topics.